Hello and welcome to our next video. I am back with our friend Judith Dobie, who is a fantastic archaeological illustrator, which is why we asked her to illustrate Billingsgate Roman House and Baths for us. And today Judith is going to take us through a bit of a masterclass on how to draw 3D Roman buildings and reconstruct them from the ground up, with possibly, she's trying to teach me how to do it, which might be a little bit difficult. My name is Kim Biddulph and I work at Billingsgate Roman House and Baths. So let me first show you the picture that Judith painted for us. This shows Billingsgate Roman House and Baths as it would have been in around AD 250, and we did do a video with Judith to talk through how she created it and what the research was and her process for going about creating this. So you can look in our list of videos and find that. So it's a beautiful painting, Judith.
That's very nice of you to say that.
Well, we all absolutely love it, and we do know that, you know, it took several iterations, didn't it?
Oh yes.
You in yourself, you take quite a few goes to get the drafts, and then of course it has to go back and forth between your client, which was us at this point, and you to make changes.
Yes, that's just part of it. I mean, sometimes you think, oh, you know, I don't want to change it again, but then that's absolutely part of it, and you've got to get it right as you can anyway.
Which makes life difficult when you've got to keep on redrawing, but you have a little bit of a trick about doing that. So you have drawn lots and lots of archaeological sites and reconstructed them, haven't you? Particularly a lot of Roman ones. Let's have a look at this one, which was a bit similar to Billingsgate Roman House and Baths, and it gives you an idea of Judith's method. Judith, do you want to talk us through this villa?
Yes, this is a Roman villa, and Roman villas were like, well, they were farms or estates, and some of them could be quite humble. It's a degree of Romanization, how much they were influenced by the Romans. So you might have some very simple ones that were pretty, you know, unchanged, but then you might have some that were almost palaces. And this is a sort of one in between. So it's got two wings and a connecting piece, and a courtyard and a little porch. And the way I set about building, and somebody told me to do this actually, they said, you've got to build it yourself. So you start with the ground plan. And that's what you've got in my first little drawing there. It's a plan of the building with its two wings and the connecting bit, and then a corridor, and then a veranda, and there's a little porch to the courtyard. So
sorry, that's all we get, isn't it? We get when we excavate, we mainly just find the ground plan. It's very, very unusual to find any walls that stand any higher than that.
That's right. That's why we always laugh at work, because we say that archaeologists are terribly keen on drains, but of course that's what they find all the time. So they're always very, you know, particular that you get the drains correct, because that's what they can be sure of. But in this picture of the villa, you have to decide, first of all, how high it's going to be. And this is a two-storied building. So you grow up the walls. You start with the corner of the plan where the wall is, and give it 2 stories.
Just here.
That's right there. So that's the first thing I did. And then on the third one, I did the little porch for the entrance into the courtyard.
Yeah.
And I drew in the corridor.
The little veranda type thing,
Yeah.
Yes.
And then I wanted to put in the other wing. And this is what I do in those cases, is that I have a bit of paper that I can see through, some tracing paper. and I would draw that separate bit, the separate wing, the one I haven't done there. I would draw that separately and then join it on top. Because if you get too many lines, it gets very confusing. And I find that's the easiest way to do it. So draw it in 2 bits like that.
And then, of course, all the details can be added on at the end.
So then you've got to decide on where the walls, where the entrances are, where the door is going to be, and draw in the pillars to the corridor and the veranda, and then the windows.
And that, of course, takes quite a lot of research to find anything that does survive, maybe on the continent or in Italy or in North Africa, and make a decision about what it might have looked like in Britain.
Yes, that's right.
Sorry, go on.
There's always a sort of difference of opinion about whether you have 2 stories or 1-story villa, but I've gone for the 2 stories. Yeah.
Yes, that is a bit of a debate, isn't it? In archaeology?
It still is, yes.
It still is, because we never find them more than just the foundations. But of course, not all Roman buildings were villas. There are lots of others, like this one. What's this one, Judith?
This is a little temple, and it's a Romano-British temple, and it's there are quite a lot in this country, and they're very characteristic. If you look at the plan, it's very very characteristic plan. If you see a plan like that, this is the sort of temple it is. So it starts with do you say Keller? The cellar?
Keller or cellar, yeah.
Yes. Which is the little.
Who knows what the original Latin was? I'm sure somebody does know, actually.
So it's like a little tower in the middle, and then there's a passageway around, and then a wall with pillars and the roof, carrying the roof. And it's pretty well. I started doing this in the same way that I started with the plan. There's a little house beside it. This is a real plan of a real building, which is at Maiden Castle in Dorset. And so this little house, they think maybe it was a priest's house, the priest for the temple, but it might be wrong. It might be a little shrine, but I sort of think it might be where the priest lived. It had two rooms there. So I've turned the plan round a little bit to make the best angle for my drawing.
Yeah, so you have to put it slightly, you're looking at it instead of from top down, you're looking at it at an angle, but still from above, aren't you?
Yes.
And a bit of perspective there as well.
Yes, a bit of perspective. The thing about how high you go to look down on things, if you need to look into things, you've got to go up a little bit. You can't see inside. You can't see into the courtyard, for instance, of the last building.
So you can choose what angle to look at it. You could decide to draw it as if you were standing on the ground and looking straight at it, or you could imagine that you're in a balloon or you're a bird and you're looking down on it slightly. And how do you just do that by eye, or is there a method for actually changing?
Well, I usually do it by eye. Sometimes, if I've got the plan, I take a photograph of it from whatever height, and then I use the photograph. The photograph will then be in perspective. If I have a lot of buildings together, I sometimes do that, and I find that's the easiest way. And if you can just do a little sketch and try and see what seems the best angle and the best height, and then take your photograph like that, and that would be the basis of your drawing.
Right. I see. So you kind of take the photograph, and then from the photo you could trace over the angle that you get. Right.
And that will give it to you in perspective.
Lovely, yeah. And then again, it's the decision about what height everything is, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. And this is based on other kind of Romano, well, Gaulish maybe, temples, isn't it, as well? It's not just a made up. No.
Oh no. I mean, sometimes you have to use your imagination, but you try to get it as educated, as educated guess.
Yeah, it's lovely. Yeah, it's a very nice temple. Thank you. Not all Roman buildings were as grand as these, though, were they? Like,
No,
yeah,
especially when the Romans first came to London and settled in London, a lot of their buildings were very simple, and they were built out of wattle and daub, and with timber roofs. They weren't grand at all. And so this is how I've drawn some of these rectangular ones that were in where the city is now in London.
mm-hmm.
And they were very simple, and they're only one story. And the people would have maybe had shops on the road, with a workshop behind, and maybe storeroom. And then they probably slept up in the loft above the room.
Mm. So
And
quite simple,
very
buildings,
simple.
and possibly, so a lot of Roman buildings were built out of stone, weren't they, with Roman brick interwoven,
Yes,
with the stone. But quite a lot of the more basic buildings were still built in a wattle and daub, weren't they?
that's right. They describe, when I was first drawing these Roman buildings in London, the sort of simple sort of buildings, the archaeologists described it as being like, you sometimes see these photographs of the Wild West, and the sort of wooden buildings that were thrown up, and the sort of pavements and the verandas. He said he thought it would be like that.
Wow.
That sort of feeling of everything in wood and sort of shed-like and very basic.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. So you start again with the ground plan, and then you draw each house separately and on different pieces of tracing paper, and then overlay them to create the final thing. Is that how it works?
Yes, that's how I did it. It's when you get lots of buildings overlapping like that, it's very easy to sort of lose your way. So I find if I draw them separately, and then I can just trace them onto one final bit of paper and build up the picture like that.
So this is where you're going to try and teach me how to do this one, because I don't think I could do the others, but I might be able to do this one. So I'm going to stop sharing, and there'll be a little bit of a break in the video, and when we come back, it'll be set up so that you can see me drawing, following Judith's instructions, and hopefully getting it kind of right, just to show you that even someone who can't draw can do this. Who believes they can't draw, let's put it that way. Right. All right. So hopefully you now can see my desk with some bits and pieces on it that Judith has suggested I have. So obviously a piece of paper, some pieces of tracing paper. I decided I wanted some masking tape just to keep things in place when they're laid over each other, and some pencils. Now the pencils matter, don't they, about what type of pencil you might want to use? And I did used to have some nice pencils, but this is all I can find now.
So I would generally go for an HB, because that's sort of middle one. It's not too soft, not too hard.
So that's quite good. I've got a few HBs. That's great.
That's fine.
I've got, yeah.
Because you can rub that out easily if you do it wrong.
Yes, that's true. Which I might need to do. So if we think to start with, if we were going to do those three houses, I'm going to draw this. I might have to turn this around. And I remember, so if we do the plan, it was one rectangle with a thinner rectangle. You can't see that very well. Let me make that a bit darker. Got to be more deliberate with my lines. But then there was one right next to it, but it was slightly longer, wasn't it? I think that was the idea, that it came out slightly a bit more, so it was a slightly bigger house. But again, with that porch on the front, almost where the shop would be. And then there was a little gap, and there was another building like this. Again, similar length. So you can see that's the plan.
Yeah.
That Judith
That's good.
gave. But then it's a case of turning it and looking at it at an angle. And then I can't do that on this, but I will try and do it by eye. So you kind of end up making it's almost like a trapezoid, isn't it? Is that the right word? It's kind of a leany rectangle.
Yes.
And I'll do slightly, so that continues like that. Oh, but no, sorry, I've done it wrong, because that one's going to be a bit longer. So there, and all of these, the bits that are at an angle, they should stay parallel, is that right?
Yes.
All right, how's this looking? Now that I want it, all of these are in a line here, the backs of these houses.
Yes.
So I need to make sure that that's in a line there as well.
That's right.
Right, okay, good. This feels like it's a bit longer now, this house, but it's just because it's closer to us, isn't it? Okay, how's that?
That looks okay.
It looks a bit funny. Let me see if I can get it at the angle that might make more sense.
And you can see, if you can see how Kim, the line that, how, if you drew, if it, I can't show this really, can I? Can you see my line, my pointer? No.
No.
No. You have to think about the lines going together a little bit, which is what you've done. If you drew a line along all the ends.
Yeah. So if you go,
you know how they go into the distance and begin to narrow.
Yeah, they would. They do, don't they?
Sort of. It's like if you're looking along a straight road, and although you know the road is the same width, it actually looks as though it's coming together. It's narrowing.
Yeah, and
that helps the perspective and makes it look like it's sitting properly.
Yeah. Because along the front here was also, I remember there was the drain,
Yeah.
a very exciting drain, and there would be a road, and that road would get slightly closer together as it went away from the viewer. Okay, that's great. So what's the next step?
You want to start with one of either the first one or the third one, and start and build it up. Build the corners up as high as you want.
All right, I'm just going to
remember they're really single story or sort of 1.5 stories.
Okay, so you need to just draw these vertical lines up from each corner.
Yeah.
And you can do it with a ruler, I guess, but they need to be the same height, I guess. I haven't got a ruler, so I'm just doing it by hand. So I've got the 4 corners of the building there. Yeah. And then what's next?
Join up your corner lines
at the top,
going across. Yeah.
Yeah. So
to make a rectangle.
All right, and I join that one to that one as well.
That's right.
And that one to that one. Oh, look at that! That started to look like a house. That's amazing. That's just but it needs a roof, doesn't it?
That's right.
Yeah, it's just kind of a cuboid at the moment.
Yeah.
So remind me how to do the roof.
Well, if you join up, if you make like a cross from each corner of the end bits.
So these end bits,
yes,
the small ones. Okay, yeah.
Join them up. Do a line to cross. That's right. And then where it intersects.
Yeah.
Do a line coming straight up, and that will be where your apex of your roof is.
Okay, so from right in the middle of the bottom through the
middle of that
middle of that cross and up, and maybe a bit higher than your back wall. That would make sense, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And the same at the back.
You have to decide how high your roof's going to be.
Yeah. I mean, if you did it too high, you're going to have a very steep roof. And if you did it too low, it'll be really flat, won't it? And then, so I want to
join that up.
Join those, okay. And that's the ridge line. And then presumably I have to join the ridge line.
That's right.
To the top of the wall. Hope everybody's following. So there's quite a lot. So does that look? It looks. That is a bit.
No, that looks fine.
There are a few lines you don't need, aren't there? So you could rub out the back wall because you can't see the back wall.
Well, that's why, in a way, if you do them separately,
yeah,
and then join them, because you get all these lines and it gets very confusing otherwise.
Exactly. So then you just want to highlight the lines that you need, and you've got to think about which parts of the building are hiding other parts of the building. Okay, should we just do the veranda on this one and then do a second building?
Yes. Okay,
so the veranda is a bit lower, isn't it, than the rest of the building?
Yes, it only comes up. Well, the roof of it joins up at the top of the wall, doesn't it?
The top of the wall at the east.
Yeah. So that's where your top is.
Yeah. So what I want is to have
build up the front wall and decide how.
This is the front wall. So you're building up again 2 vertical lines for the corners of the front wall.
Yeah.
And then you just think, yeah, that looks all right to me. Maybe, I don't know, maybe that one needs to be a bit smaller. And then by doing the roof, you join it up to that corner, the top of the wall at the back. Yeah, just behind that. Is this looking all right? And then I need to join this up and join this up like this. And again, that will of course obscure some of the. Oh, I've dropped my pen off, pencil on the floor. It will cover up some of the other lines that you don't need anymore, won't it?
Yes.
Okay. How about that? Oh, it's starting to look like a real 3D building.
Oh, that looks really good.
Right, shall we do another one?
Yeah.
Where you suggest putting a bit of tracing paper over the top, isn't it?
Well, first of all, draw 2 little crosses on the one you've just drawn.
Oh, yes, I forgot. So
these are called registration marks.
So just cross there and maybe here?
Yes.
Yeah. And why do we do that?
Well, so when you do your next drawing, and you put the crosses in too on that. So when you do.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah. So I put cross there.
So you're putting it in exactly the right place when you put them all together.
So if I need to take it off, I can line it up properly.
Yes.
Right.
So when you trace through the 3 buildings all together, you'll all have to be on those little crosses, so you'll get them in just the right place.
And I'm just going to stick this down so that it doesn't move around whilst I'm trying to draw on it, because that's always annoying. And I basically just do the same thing for that.
Yes.
On this one. Right, let's see if I can go through it myself and do it maybe. I'm just going to do the first one rather than the one in between. Okay, so, and I'm going to try to not fill in. Oh no, I don't want that one. I'm going to try that. I don't know. This might be being too, might be trying to be too clever, is to not fill in the walls that you won't see on the final thing. But maybe
we can always leave all those out when you do, the 3 together, can't you?
Yeah. I wonder if that wall isn't quite right there. Anyway, there you go. So then you do the cross and then up there for the top of the roof. So roof, oh, maybe a bit higher than that, maybe. And I'm gonna go across and oh no, hang on, don't want that. What did I do that for? And then join the ridge line to the top. of the walls. Oh, right. Oh, actually, I didn't quite get it right because I thought I needed that back wall and I didn't. Okay, so let me just make sure I've got the right lines on. There we go. And of course I can do the veranda on that. Oh, I forgot to do the oh no, maybe I don't need that full line. Anyway, there we go. And then the veranda. And oh, that, I think this one, because I was going a bit fast, it looks a bit wonky. But
well, they might not have been the best buildings anyway, so it doesn't matter.
That's true. Yeah, they may well have been quite basic, mightn't they?
Yes, rough old buildings, I think.
So there you go. And then, of course, you could get another piece of paper. You could take this one off.
Yes.
Another piece and do that middle building.
Yeah.
And then you've got to trace all of those onto the final picture.
Yeah.
And you do that on a light box, don't you?
Yes, I do.
But maybe.
I mean, a good way, one way you can do, because not everybody's got a light box, is if it's a sunny day, if you hold up the tracing paper and the bit of paper that you're going to paint on, if you're going to paint it or draw it on a bit of proper paper, if you hold it up at the window pane, you can see through and you could trace it like that.
So yeah, so you then take your two bits, you put it round the back and hold it up to a window, and you'll be able to see and trace the whole thing onto this first picture, and have sorry, you can't see what I'm doing, and have all of the three buildings on there. And you've got less chance of making mistakes, haven't you, by doing it that way? It takes a little bit longer, I think, but the result is going to be really good.
Yeah.
And of course, you can do that so many times that you create a whole town. So just give us, there's going to be a little break in the video when I show you what Judith has achieved using that technique. Here we are again, and back to that. That's what I was attempting to do there. And I'm quite excited that I don't think I did too badly, really. I was starting to get there. But so if you want to do a much bigger area, then obviously you're going to have lots of buildings. And here are all the plans of some buildings, aren't they?
Yes, can you see how they're not square? Well, the ones in the very middle are square, but the ones on the sides are sort of slanting in, and that's what we were talking about with the perspective.
Yeah, they are, aren't they? And you've also marked out a few like little alleyways, I think. Here are these alleyways.
Yes, that's right. And sort of like they had yards and gardens and
yeah, so they seem to have a little shed here.
Yeah.
And you do it you draw these buildings the same way, so that you get them all 3D by doing it on different pieces of tracing paper and then putting it together. And look at this. It's amazing. It looks like a little village.
And the ones on the left-hand side are the ones that Kim drew, the three.
Yeah, these three, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I drew it shorter at the front instead of at the back, which was a mistake. You've got to look out for these little mistakes that can creep in.
But it's really good fun when you can start and do the yards and people working and that sort of thing. Yeah,
or little animals, and you've got a cart down here. That's really nice, all the little detail. And amazing, I love this image. If you want to, you can make it even bigger. This is quite ambitious. It's beautiful, isn't it? And is that supposed to be Londinium?
Yes, that's Londinium, and that's with the forum, and that's going across the Walbrook, which was
oh yes, so this big building here is the forum, which was on top of a slight hill, wasn't it? Cornhill. Yeah. And this break here, you can just see
that's the Walbrook.
Yeah, a line of a river going through the centre of Londinium, the Walbrook. And in the background, you can see the London Bridge, the first bridge across the River Thames. So much detail. It's wonderful. And you can create this by using Judith's method. There are other methods for doing drawings like this, aren't there?
Oh, yes. I mean, there's no right way to do it. It's just sort of what suits you and what, I mean, you could do it digitally if you're good at that.
Yeah, there are some digital pieces of software that you could teach yourself to use as well. But I like this method because this is something that is easy to do. All you need is a piece of paper, some tracing paper, or maybe you could use some thin paper for the overlays, or baking parchment, whatever you can get your hands on, and a HB pencil, which is basically what most people have, and you're away. That's fantastic. Thank you very much, Judith, for showing us this. I hope that that's been useful for people. But if you, and of course, then you can add colour as well, to make a painting. And you have to, of course, have done a bit of research. You know, what colour were the roofs in Roman buildings? Do we find roof tiles? And you can find those by doing some online research and add that to your finished drawing. But thank you so much. Hopefully that's given you a few tools to use, some skills to have a go. But if you do have any questions, you can put them in the comments below, and I will talk to Judith, and maybe we can do a follow-up, or maybe Judith can answer your questions via YouTube or one of these other methods. So you can find us on Twitter at LDN Roman Baths. We're on Facebook if you look for Billingsgate Roman House and Baths. And if you go to the website cityoflondon.gov.uk/bathhouse, you'll find out more about the house and baths, and find out when hopefully we will reopen sometime in 2021, and send us an email as well.